Today we're talking about busyness, organization, time management, basically how to not be overwhelmed by all the shit we got to do and how to manage it, how to go about all this stuff. Today's guest is a mentor of mine, John. This is a mentor episode, and if you don't know what that means yet, sorry, you can't listen. No, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's someone who's been through this season of life and is willing to give back some of their life wisdom based on what they've learned. John is 46. And so the first half of this episode is definitely more of an analytical conversation about busyness, right? How to manage your time, some organization skills, and how do we focus on what's most important to us. The second half is really where we get into, okay, now that we know more about this, how do we do it? What do we do about it? How can we go about prioritizing the things that really matter while maintaining relationships? It's saying no. It's what should we say yes to? And how do we keep our friendships amidst all of this busyness? Later in the episode, around the 45-ish minute mark, we did lose video. So if you're watching this on Spotify or YouTube, apologies. And just warning you about it now. And if you're an Apple Music person, what are you doing in the first place? But this doesn't matter to you because there's no video on there anyways. So just keep doing your thing, man. No, but lesson learned in recording a podcast, make sure everything is plugged in before you press record. Make sure everything is charging. Today's sponsor is Handwritten Notes. I think everyone loves a good handwritten note or a thank you. I mean, just think about the last time you got a handwritten note and how long you kept it for. I think that should tell you all you need to know about handwritten notes. I think we should do the old-fashioned things well. And I think also later in the episode, we will talk about something like how to do those things more, how to do those little things that help our relationships amidst all of the chaos that every one of us is in. So thanks for being here, caring about quarter life clarity. And yeah, enjoy the episode. So today we're talking about busyness. And when John and I, we were trying to figure out what we wanted to talk about. And we were going to talk about purpose for a little while. And then something happened and we had to delay. And I had one of those days where I got home from something and I was just instant overwhelm. I was job, career. It's I'm not tending to relationships that I know I should be. It was just all this stuff that had going on. Just one of those in the car moments of what the hell is happening? I can't do this. And so it was then where I was like, well, we got to talk about this. And figured, John, you of all people, I know you have a lot going on. Just a testament to who you are and how busy you are, and the fact that we're having this conversation. So yeah, with that, John, how busy are you? Tell me what you got going on and why this is a great topic for you.
Well, and thanks for including me in this process, and I'm honored to be here and just to have this conversation. And I'm going to consider this a therapy session for myself. But what you just described is pretty much every day for me in many ways. But loaded question, right? How busy am I? And I joke all the time. You ask anybody, how are you doing? Oh, so busy. And I believe people. Everybody's busy, but things are hectic, man. I mean, I'm arguably in the busiest years of my life. I think primarily because I've got this major bucket of work that needs to be nurtured, right? And all that attention that goes to that in order to provide, in order to have purpose, in order to, do good work and make money, obviously, right? But then I also have this humongous bucket of 3 kids that they're all in this age of, they have things to do. They have places to be. I've got 2 teenage girls and I've got a son that's about to enter into middle school, and none of them are driving, but they're all in sports and dance. And I've got a kid that has a job now, and they tell her when her hours are. They don't ask me if that's convenient. They just assume that she's going to get a ride somewhere. So, yeah, it's hectic, but one thing I learned a long time ago was the phrase "stressed but blessed," and it's just like, man, these are good things. Certainly can be overwhelming to the point of taking that grip, and that moment you just described where you sit there and you go, man, I'm overwhelmed, I can't take it anymore. That's a grip, right? That's an anxiety born grip of it can cause that paralysis. It can cause that meltdown. And believe me, I have my days, and I have, sometimes I lay down at night and I'm like, I don't know how many more days I can do this. But then you have that blessing of going to bed and waking up and it's a fresh day. And it's like, okay, I think I can do this again. Right. So, I mean, you talk about an apropos topic at an apropos time in my life. I think you picked the right guy for this particular episode, because I cannot remember a time where I was more busy.
Yeah. And I mean, not to mention just we're going to talk about relationships later, but like physical health and a lot of other, like, finances. Like, you have a beautiful house that we're in right now, maintaining that. There's so much that I think, kind of like you said, we often do wear that busyness as like a badge of honor. Like it tells somebody that, hey, I'm important.
Sure.
Because I'm busy.
Sure.
And I agree with you. I think everyone is busy. That's why we're talking about this. And so, you said you have those moments as well. I think just like we all do of overwhelm. And so also with that, how do you stay grounded? Do you organize yourself in a way that you maintain all of this stuff that you just mentioned, habits, systems?
How do I do it?
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. Well, and I will say, if I'm rewinding back to trying to keep in mind to who our audience is, I think back to my 20s when I was trying to figure out how to navigate this thing called adulting, right? And how to be productive, how to be organized, how to not let all of these moving parts consume me while trying to build a home, build a family, kind of get into that next level of maturity and life, which comes with so much responsibility and so much on your shoulders that you just don't realize until you get out into the world and start doing it, right? But during that time, I was so fortunate to have some incredible mentors that helped to guide me in navigating this journey. And one of the things that I learned a long time ago was just be completely disciplined with how I spend my time, and more importantly, who I spend it with. And I think that might be one of the paths we go down today in terms of, friends, relationships, and who gets my attention and whatnot. But I have become almost maniacally relentless at planning out my days and weeks, time blocking. Everything is task driven. I've got deliverables and reminders for myself that honestly, if they weren't written down, they just wouldn't happen, because only so much can fit up in your brain at one given time, and we can't remember it all. So, between scheduling for the family, scheduling for work, blocking off time that I know I need, but then also really being super intentional about how I begin and end my days, and what behaviors am I doing during that time? And of course, not every day is perfect. There are some days that I'm like, hey, I just want to watch some dumb show on Netflix to not think about anything. And that becomes the last thing I do before I go to bed. That's not ideal for me, but sometimes it happens because I just can't, I need to just let loose. But one of the things that I've really tried to do is I build a task list that literally tells me things that I need to do every day. And if it's not on that list, it's just not a priority. Combined with managing a schedule where I've got essentially a home-based schedule that brings in all the family stuff, all the work stuff, all the personal stuff, and it's color-coded and it's all in one spot.
I get the same thing.
Yep, just tells me here's what's on deck today. Even today, yours showed up as blue because it's non-work. I consider it personal, but it's also time that tells my work life that I'm off limits.
Yeah.
Right. And then bookending the days with, I do a ton of reading, right? I've started my day with a publication called the Daily Word, which is kind of like little bite-sized faith-based nuggets of wisdom for the day, just to kind of set my intention for that day. And it's usually based on a single theme that technically comes out of the Bible. So I'm like digesting the Bible over the course of a year. That's the first thing I read every day. And
You don't look at your phone?
Nope.
Nice.
I don't look at my phone until about an hour to an hour and a half after I've woken up, because at 5 a.m., believe me, it can wait, right? Get in my pages. I shoot for 10 to 20 pages out of a book every day, have my coffee, quiet time, get my kids to school. And then most days I squeeze in a quick meditation just to, again, be mindful and just breathe and kind of connect that mind, body, and soul connection and get those engines revving up for the day. And then at the end of the day, I try to end with not a lot of food for the last couple hours I'm awake, drinking usually some sort of caffeine-free tea or herbal tea just to relax the body. And again, trying to get in some reading to unwind so I'm off that screen.
Mm-hmm.
And then quietly lull myself into hopefully a restful night, right? So one of the things I was also taught by one of my mentors was, you cannot control what happens to you during the day, but you can control the beginning and the end. And if I do that, I can operate in a place of chaos for 12 hours in between, because I'm just reacting to stuff all the time. But I know I've got those two as my foundational points.
Yeah.
And it's been a game changer, especially, from in my 30s, having kids, getting into 40s where it's just so hectic. Even just from a mental health standpoint, I need those things. It's not even that I want them or I believe that they're just good for me, so I'm going to do them. I actually need those things.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would lose my mind.
Yeah, so you talked about two things there that I want to hit on. And let's hit on the one that you just talked about. Bookending your days, but more specifically, like I think you talked about being bored, doing nothing kind of, like intentionally, like meditation. I personally don't physically like meditate or use an app or anything, but something that I do is I start my day with a walk with no phone. I just quiet walk, like 6 a.m.
Oh,
it's great.
the best.
And intentionally doing those things. It could be a car ride with no music.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a meal with no screen, nothing going on. Like I think those moments where you do nothing are critical. And I think it's because, kind of like you said, we're consuming, we're reacting for so much of our day. And a good analogy that I actually heard recently for this was, we're consuming, we're taking in all this knowledge from music, from books even, from podcasts, from conversations, and we're constantly processing it.
Yeah.
And the analogy was, well, what if all of that stuff you were consuming, what if you were eating it? What if it was a meal and you're just constantly consuming all the time? You would kill yourself.
Yep.
You would have to take a break too, right? And so I think we overeat in terms of the content and everything that we consume. And it's like those things can lead to burnout. That's why you are overwhelmed. That's why you do feel so busy. And I think those moments of quiet and intentionally putting them in your day, like you schedule it out, I think those things are super important as well.
When you think about, especially, let's say the last 10 years, the amount of inputs coming at us, right? I forget the number, but it's something crazy, like 600,000 unique thoughts pass through your brain in a 24-hour period. It's something crazy, right? And it's so much of it's driven by this dopamine hit, right? And I'm guilty of it too. I'll sit down. I'm alone in this house for lunch. I sit down for lunch and I grab my phone and I'm just like hitting up, ESPN, whatever. And I'm sitting there going, why, right? Why do I really need to know? And we're now conditioned to want that hit of information or validation that we're relevant, or talk about social media. It's a whole different subject of like, wanting to prove that you have this perfectly curated life that at the end of the day doesn't matter, right? And one of the most profound things I ever heard, it was at a seminar, this probably goes back well over 10 years ago, is the keynote speaker said, believe me when I tell you, when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to wish you spent more time on social media. And that was a gut punch to me.
Yeah.
Where I really started to reel it back and say, what am I doing, endlessly wasting time doing this, and why am I doing it? And when you talk about being in the car with no music, you talk about taking that intentional walk, meditating, right? Having a meal with no phone. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's hard. I literally have to like put my phone over there.
It's boring.
It's boring, right?
Yeah.
And who wants to sit with their own thoughts? And I'll tell you that even tying back in the walking piece, one of the most profound things I've ever learned is that the original form of exercise, but also the most rewarding thing you can do for your body is get up and take a walk. You know, whether it's after a meal, first thing in the morning, whatever, but take a walk, no music, no distraction. If you happen to be with someone you love, then that's different because now you have that human interaction point, but it's such an intentional thing and it forces you to really think about what's most important, even just for that day or just for that moment. But it's hard, to your point, because it goes against the grain of everything we're conditioned to be right now, which is, like you said, busyness is a badge of honor. And how dare I actually say, hey, I'm going to take 20 minutes and do nothing. Well, my subconscious is now saying you're lazy, or there's got to be something that's getting missed right now, or again, craving that instant gratification. But man, that quiet, I learned from another one of my mentors who was a samurai instructor. This guy was incredibly badass. That's a whole different chapter of my life, by the way. I took samurai swordsmanship for a couple of years. But he would talk
about
a
sword in the house?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll send you a picture later. You won't believe it. You'll be like, that's JP? Wow. He talked about empty mind. You seek what's called the empty mind, right? And it's that peace and that quiet. And as I've gotten older, I crave these experiences in life that force me to have an empty mind. Like being in the ocean by yourself first thing in the morning as the sun comes up. I am not thinking about anything other than that sun and that ocean and how grateful I am to be in nature, right? A few years ago, I got into rock climbing. Rock climbing to me is so beautiful because it forces me to think only about what I'm doing in that moment. Because if I don't, then I fall. So there's an element of risk, but it clears the brain. And I remember the first time I went, I was like, this is different. This is liberating. I have to be in this present moment. And so many of us each day are not because of all of these things coming at us, right? So I seek out as much as I can those moments because I feel like it resets on because the stresses are going to come, right? If you're going to be functioning in this society and you're going to be providing and you want a nice home, you want all these things, guess what? That comes with a huge sacrifice. But if I can at least be intentional at seeking those moments, then I know I'll be a better version of myself, right? Constantly working on that. Obviously, none of us are perfect, but trying to just be a better version of myself every day. And without those quiet moments, I can't be.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it does go back to like being present, right? It's funny. I've gone rock climbing once and it was a month or two ago. Dude, I couldn't agree more. It forces you to, one, I loved it because you're using your mind and your body together.
Sure. And
yeah, it's forcing you to only think about this one thing. Mm-hmm. And I think another analogy is like, if you're lifting and you got 500 pounds on the bar, mm-hmm. you better only be thinking about that 500 pounds, man.
That's it.
And I think those moments, they do ground you. They do force you to use this almost compartment of focus that you're not super used to doing because you've always got a million things on your mind. Mm-hmm. And being intentional about doing things like that, I think is.
Oh yeah. I mean, this in a roundabout way, these things are interconnected because being intentional to seek those moments requires me to time block and requires me to accomplish certain things that allow that time in the first place, right? So yes, I have to be intentional. I have to want to do, have these quiet moments, but I also have to be able to.
Yeah.
And that's hard too, because if I approach my day in disarray or in complete chaos, I'm never going to find those moments. Believe me, because I'll just be, I'll be the dog chasing his tail every day, and I'll never quite, quote unquote, get there. But again, being so obsessed with, like, for instance, today is a Friday. I've already planned out next week, because if I wake up Monday and start to plan it out, I'm already too late. My week then gets dictated by other people, versus me saying, hey, let me time block. Let me figure out the days that I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Let me figure out the days where I am off limits for those time periods. It may not always work out that way, but at least the intention was there.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think too, just on that, the other thing that I did want to hit on, and I'm glad you brought it back to that, was something that I have done, I think twice now over the past couple of years. I need to do it more, is when I'm the most overwhelmed, I sit down, I time block 2 hours to just organize. And what I do is I open a Word document and I write everything that is in my mind that I have to do, personal and work, anything, an oil change, cleaning the bathroom, cleaning my room, down to like tangible tasks for work.
Sure.
And I just get it all on paper, and then I put the things that are like for later, for the future, for maybe next month. Yep. I put those at the end, and then you just prioritize. Yep. And I think I completely agree with what you're saying. Writing things down. I write anything. Anyone that knows me knows that I use reminders more than anyone probably should. Reminders, your notes.
Yep.
I got a couple black notebooks that I put next to my bed, because I'm always like, I have a thought in the middle of the night. It's like, I got to write this down. It kind of sucks, but I think writing things down, it's like, why does that work? And I think it's because, well, you don't have to search for it. I know I have this physical place where everything I need to do is there. And what's great too is when things come up and it's like, well, I don't want to deal with that now, but I know I have to do it at some point. You just throw it on the list.
That's right.
And it's gone. There's no mental space that is taken up. Like, think of your brain as like a hard drive. And the more you can use that, that's why I think just writing things down is so important. And that's something that has truly helped me organize everything. And then what you do to build off of your point with time blocking, I'll go like, all right, what am I tackling this week? From that big list, grab these X number of things. This is what I'm doing this week. And then I throw that into my Google Calendar of, okay, these are the out. And it's never exactly how I want. I don't have as many meetings as you do, but it's like these tasks that I know I have to do. This is roughly when I'm going to get them done by. And at the very least, at the end of the day, let's try and get these done. And if you don't, just move it to tomorrow, right? And you reorganize along the way. So,
well, and the reality that a lot of people come to realize at some point after they graduate from college, they enter the professional world. Now they're ultimately on their own, right? It's up to them to produce for their own life, but you realize that no one else is keeping score for you. So there is no such thing as a perfect day. There's also no such thing as a completely awful day, in my opinion. The highs are never that high. The lows are never that low. But if I don't quite get to all the things I set out to get to today, that's okay. No one's going to hold me accountable. It's me deciding, hey, this is now going to move to Monday because it has to wait. Or, hey, I'm going to stay up late and get this done because it's that urgent for me, right? So, but it's the onus, right? It's you saying, well, this is my life. And I also reserve the right to look at my list and go, that's not important to me anymore. I'm going to take it off. And that's okay. But what you just described is quite literally my system, where I've got a calendar, tells me where to be and when and who I'm meeting with. And then I've got a task list of the things I'm working on. And in my humble opinion, if you don't have those two things, then you're flying blind, right? You're essentially letting the world dictate how your life's going to be versus you writing your script.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I want to read you this quote. The biggest risk to your future are the distractions that we insist on keeping in our lives rather than doing the things we know we should be doing but aren't. That's a quote by Alex Ramosi.
True.
So we're kind of talking about like prioritizing things, making things important, to go back to the social media and distractions and all this stuff that we consume. Do you think we, which is pretty broad, we as a people, but even specifically like people my age, do you think we're focusing on the wrong stuff? You know, and just to give a few examples, like I've been there with all of this, like the TV shows, the scrolling, the dinners, all this stuff we have to do, politics, the weather, all this stuff that honestly doesn't really matter, that we maybe can't control. And I want to go back to the ESPN thing. I deleted the ESPN app recently because
you're a better man than me.
Because it was one of those things, like I'm kind of in this grind set right now of work, and I do believe in seasons of life, and it's just like,
sure,
it really is a distraction, and I can't control any of it. I'm just getting these updates, and I'm getting fired up about how bad the Jets are doing and what the Yankees are up to, and then I'm driven to thinking about that and going in deeper about who the Jets just drafted, and you realize it's taking away from the main thing.
Yep.
And so, yeah, do you think we're at times focused on the wrong stuff?
Yeah, what a great question, and I do want it noted that I hate the Yankees and the Jets. I just want to put that out there to the universe.
The Jets, dude, they don't do anything.
Yeah, I'm never worried. I'm never worried about the Jets. But yes and no. As humans, do we deserve entertainment and mindless entertainment at times? Yeah, right. We are in a time of history where it's just part of who we are. And yeah, I stayed up a little late last night and watched the NBA playoff game. You know, it's not normal for me on a Thursday night. I'm usually in bed way before that, but I happen to really like some of the players, and I'm intrigued by this, and I'm a huge basketball junkie, right? So there is a time and place. Now, with that being said, social media changed everything, right? Because prior to that, you had to go turn a TV on, or turn a radio on, or proactively listen to music, and now it's just right there. Think about what social media provides folks, right? It's a platform. It's an art form for sure. I don't want to be, I don't want to be that Gen Xer sitting here saying, it's the worst thing. I'm not that old school, but I do think we spend an inappropriate amount of time on these things. And to your point about ESPN app, when it controls you, when it controls your line of thinking, or when it changes the trajectory of your day and it gives you an emotional response that, to your point, is very much out of your control, that's where I have a problem with it. And I gave up on social media a long time ago. I do a lot on LinkedIn, but that's primarily professional oriented. But I realized that it wasn't serving me, right? And it was also giving me a false sense of identity, in that I've always felt inadequate. And I always felt that fear of not being good enough, fear of missing out, fear of, wow, this person has it so well put together. Now, mind you, I'm looking at a highlight reel of someone's life, because actually some people air out their dirty laundry on social media. That's a whole nother topic. But again, what I think the main question is this serving me? And with the information or inputs I'm getting, how am I then better serving others? And I think that our original topic, we were going to talk a little bit about purpose, and I think a lot of this bleeds into this, what we're talking about for today's conversation. But a lot of it comes down to, if we're talking about what matters most with how we spend our time, obviously you have the hierarchy of needs. I need to eat, I need shelter, I need to provide for my children, I need to make sure they're healthy. Those are really the basics. We need fresh air and clean water and all that. But then it becomes, well, what is next? And I believe what is next is, how are we giving back? How am I treating my fellow humankind, right? How am I bringing kindness and love to the table? Am I serving with purpose? Am I making the world a better place with me in it? And am I the better version of myself than I was yesterday? Now, again, not every day lines up that way. We all have weak moments and weak days, or weak seasons sometimes. But I think the real answer to your question is yes, because for the most part, the things that we are finding ourselves focusing on and sucking up our time during the day and changing the way we think is not, A, it's not serving us, and B, it's not helping us to serve others at all. It just kind of dies, right? Again, are you going to remember a social media post you saw in your 20s when you're 80? Probably not.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Now, is that to say it's all garbage? No. There's some entertainment in there. There's also some really good stuff. A lot of people use social media platforms for the purpose of giving back or for something that is purpose driven, and I love that. I can't blindly say it's the wrong thing, but I can tell you that I don't miss it a single day. And I think about the hours and hours I lost per day. And you know what, the death scroll, right?
Yeah.
It's real. You go down these rabbit holes, and then you look up after 90 minutes and you go, wow, I feel awful about my life. Or I don't even remember what I was looking at. It's just mindless, right? And these are now lessons I'm trying to teach my kids. And that, believe me, when I tell you, that's an uphill battle, because they're growing up in an era where they know nothing else but having an electronic in their hand with Wi-Fi everywhere they go.
Yeah.
They don't know. I'm like the last generation that kind of knows both sides completely. I think your generation probably knows a little bit of it. I'm sure you didn't grow up with tons of technology.
No, we grew up with go outside.
Right.
But like we had, GameCube, we had track phones, we had the beginning.
It was there.
It was the beginning.
It was the beginning. But yeah, I think that's the question I have asked myself, but I would encourage others to ask is this serving me, and is it helping me serve others?
Something that I've done in working with college students in the past, and I think is a great exercise for kind of what we're talking about, is step one, write down what's important to you. Family, friends, try to be specific, work, whatever that might be. I don't think you need a crazy long list.
Sure.
Your top five, right? And so that's one side of the paper. And then the other side is there's 168 hours in a week. And write down what you're spending each hour roughly on, right? You get 8 hours of time in bed. That's 56 hours, roughly maybe 50 hours a week that you're working. Your commute, eating takes up way more time than you actually think. Stuff like that. And then you realize you get down to it and it's like, I have 5 hours of like nothing. And not to mention also throw in there the social media time.
Yep.
Right? All that stuff. There's so many random things that we do. And I think we lose sometimes what's truly important. Because, right, the goal is to look at, you compare the what's important to what am I actually spending my time on. And if there's a disconnect, which there oftentimes probably will be, what adjustments need to be made? And sometimes I know I've found there are seasons in your life where relationships maybe are not as much of a priority, or work is not as much of a priority. I think it's especially the quarter lifer who is trying to figure out maybe, especially like their purpose, career. That's a big topic. Family's not quite there yet. There are seasons that I think you are disproportionately focused on that one thing. Like for me right now, it is work.
Sure.
And I know there's some relationships that could be better, but there's sacrifices involved to everything too. But I think that's just one kind of self-check that you can do. It takes 2 seconds to do, by the way.
Oh, I mean, it's a hard one to do if you're being honest, right? Because I think conceptually, people, oh yeah, like these things are important to me, and I nurture them,
Right.
and then you sit there and you go, all right, let's really do a tally, right? Let's really be brutally honest with myself, and what you realize is there is that major disconnect, and sometimes it's appropriate, right? You get a brand new job, well, guess what? That's going to be all consuming for a little bit. You have a baby. Well, that's going to be all consuming. There's no other choice there, right? So there's a little bit of that. But one thing that I was taught actually quite recently, it's so simple, and the way it was worded was beautiful, but I think it was actually Mel Robbins. I must have heard something from her, but she said, take your 24 hours in a day and just cut it up into thirds. And you got 8 hours of sleep, you got 8 hours of work, and then you got 8 hours to nurture the things that are most important to you. And if you find that work now takes 12 hours and sleep now takes 5 hours, then you're out of whack. Or, if you're realizing that you're sitting around always only doing the things you want to do and you're neglecting work, well, that's a problem because now you're not going to be able to provide. So it's just like a super easy scale to think. But then I think when I heard it, I thought, well, I don't spend 8 hours a day doing all the things with my family and all the things I want to do. It's usually, to your point, it's like the scraps, right? The most important factors in your life are getting your table scraps. They're getting the least of you versus the best of you. And it's hard, right? It's hard. For me, my focus has shifted through the years where by far, my number one, by far, is health. Because everything else is dependent on that. I can't be a good dad. I can't be a good partner or a friend if I'm not healthy. I can't work well. I can't sleep well. I can't do anything else I want to do if my health is compromised. So that has become my focal point. It's almost the analogy of put the gas mask on, or put the oxygen mask on to your kid or yourself before you do your kid on the airplane, right? It's like, it seems selfish in a way, but it's actually the most selfless thing you can do is take care of yourself, get your priorities straight, make sure you feel good. I think there's such a major connection with body and mind. And how many times have you ever worked out and you're like, everything's going to be okay?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, like, I'm good. I got this. And the body drives the mind, right? It's that neuro response to that stress release and, all the endorphins and, the post-workout high and all that stuff that has been documented, but it's real, versus trying to outthink a body that's not working well and trying to will your way into it by just thinking about it. It doesn't work that way. It's literally a one-way street. So I think all of this broad topic of managing time and whatnot has to all be driven by, I am making my health a priority. I need to physically release this stress. I need to get out into nature. There's also a major component. We're human beings. We're supposed to be in the woods, in the ocean, jump in the lake, run through the forest, take the walk at 6 a.m., see the sunrise. We're supposed to have those things. It's unfortunate that most of us sit at a desk all day. We're indoors, right? So I think there's such a piece to that too. But if I get those things right, all of a sudden these other pieces that seem to be so chaotic and overwhelming magically just fall into place.
Real quick, I want to interrupt this conversation for like 90 seconds to put something else on your plate. Because obviously, if you're listening to this, you don't have enough stuff on your plate already. The Quarter Life Clarity Community. It's anonymous, it's free, it's incredibly easy to join. I truly believe that if this whole Quarter Life Clarity thing is going to work, if it is going to succeed, we got to start talking to each other about this stuff. And so that's what the community is for. I post in there twice a week, once on Sunday about this week's podcast episode, and then again on Wednesdays to give you some extra wisdom, encouragement to get you through the rest of the week. That's it. I would love to have you there. And if you don't want to join, that's completely okay. Appreciate you being here and supporting this whole thing through the podcast. There is a link in the description of this episode and every episode to join. Again, super simple. And yeah, let's get back to the episode. Unbiased, but obviously biased. I think the second half of this thing is really good. So stick around and enjoy. Yeah, and the health being number one is a great example, because I think about that for me, and health is one. Even as much as I say it's work, it's career, health is one. And it's the saying of when you're healthy, you have 1,000 problems. When you're not healthy, you have one problem.
Oh, it's a good one.
And just to also kind of change gears, where, talking about being focused on the things that are important, I came across this study the other day from, as I was like preparing for this, listened to a TED Talk about busyness. And in the talk, she mentioned there was a study that was done by a management research group of 10,000 senior leaders. And they were asked, what is key to your organization's success? 97% of them said long-term strategic thinking. Okay. In a separate study, 96% of senior leaders said they don't have time for strategic thinking. And what that means to me is
incredible.
We're not spending time on the most important things.
That's it.
And, we're we talked about distractions. Like, we don't have to talk a ton more about that, but I do think, in a way, like, how does that connect to us? I think it does kind of connect to goals in a way. What's your vision, right? What's your goal? What are you after? I think when you lack those 3, 4, 5 things that are most important, that's when the distractions really come in, because you don't have a center or a
true north.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. And you'll be kind of just floating.
Yeah.
And you'll be distracted. I know I found that, like, trust me, I wouldn't be deleting the ESPN app if I didn't have something that was way more important.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So it's certain things, I think, certain seasons of your life force you to act a certain way. And I think a lot of it does come down to, well, what is your goal? What kind of life do you want to live? Who do you want to be when you're 50, 70? What do you want to look back at when you're 90?
Yeah.
And hopefully, like, to me, having a lack of regret. Well, what do I have to do now to reduce that regret? And I think a lot of it ties into, too, I love the saying, and I love to say, your days become your weeks, become your years, become your whole life. And so I think shrinking this down a little bit, right? It's, what am I doing today? What did I do this week? And also, like, this today and this week probably wasn't that different from last week and the week before and the month before and the year before. And it's like, all right, well, you future cast that, you stretch that out. That's maybe going to be your whole life. And so if you don't like that, then, right, what's the adjustment? What do you have to change? Where do you have to go to the drawing board and write down those things that are most important? And then I think all of it does kind of tie into saying no.
Oh, yeah.
Saying no to things
is,
to me, super important. Like saying no to that ESPN app, I've said no to friends. I've gotten, I think, fairly decent because I've had to at saying no because, again, of what's most important to me right now. Talk to me about that. Like saying no. Yeah. What's your experience with that?
Well, I was a yes man for so long. And, we want you to speak. We want you to, volunteer for this. Yes, I'll do it all. We want, coach for your kids. I did that. I'll never regret that piece. But the reason I bring that into it is at a certain point when you say yes to so many things, then something has to give. And what I found was that I was giving so much to other people that the people closest to me were getting the last bits of me. right? Because I didn't have anything left. You have a social battery, an emotional battery that has a finite life to it. And when it runs low, you are not your best self. And it was fun because a lot of these things were purposeful. And it was also fun because it was very socially driven, and there was just a lot to be done in the community. There was a lot to be done through owning businesses locally. But at the end of a long day, you come home and, in my world, I had little kids that are looking at me and I'm like, Daddy's got nothing left, guys. I'm exhausted. So that had to change. And I almost kind of hit bottom there where talk about overwhelming. Like, it was just like, I'm not well. I'm not sleeping. I'm not taking care of myself. And then the workouts start to drift. The nutrition starts to drift. No longer bookending the days. All these walls start closing in. And I go, okay, I know my intentions are good. I want to say yes to things because they're good things. And I want to say yes to all these friends of mine because I love them and I miss them and I want to hang out. And then that kind of segues into the next thing where it's like that friend group has drastically decreased. And it's funny to me when I think about social media, LinkedIn, all the people that I've connected with through the years. You can't nurture them all. You can't. When you're in your 20s, you think you can. And a lot of people, I got 30, 50, 75 friends. I had people, turning 30, throwing birthday parties for themselves and inviting 100 people. I'm like, I know 100 people, but not that well.
Yeah.
So I started to really kind of peel that away. And I think a lot of it too aligns with you figure out who you are. And again, specifically for this audience, my belief is between 25 to 34, you find out who you are. Right? And you go on this vision quest and this journey and you do soul searching and you really find out who you are. In that process, you've got to start to spend time with folks that lift you up and compliment you versus bring you down. And some of it's value driven, right? Some of it might be, social policy, like what do you believe in? This where politics can bleed into this, religion sometimes also, but mostly it's like, I want to be around people who level me up and don't level me down. And, that classic saying, you are the average of the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I believe that, right? When you really write down all those people you've spent time with, you go, wow, this person's really headed in the wrong direction. And they want to bring me with them. That's the other thing, right? Misery loves company. And I'm all about helping people, but I'm also, hey, like, here's where I'm going. And if that doesn't align with your values, then we'll still be friends. Let's maybe call it acquaintances. Yeah. And I love you. And when I see you, I'll give you a big hug, but we're probably not going to hang out all that much. And that's got to be okay. And of course, a lot of this shifts, hopefully, when you start, if it's in people's plans to have children, that becomes your tribe. Right? My true north is my 3 kids, right? And then I've got these amazing relationships, but only a few of them. And that has been liberating because, number 1, I don't have the time to nurture everybody. Number 2, I learned the value of saying no to things because I respectfully am saying no because it's going to allow me to be the better version of myself for the people that matter the most to me. I can't save the world all over the place. I can't do everything. I can't donate my time to everything. I can't be involved with every charity, but I can be involved with 1 or 2 charities and do it really well. I can volunteer my time for things that matter to me the most, and I can still be the best version of myself to my family and my close friends. And that is that battle of balance that a lot of people don't get until they've already become burnt out.
And how do you, I completely agree. How do we get out of the people pleasing mindset? You know what I mean? Because I think so many people could be there of like, yeah, I know I have to say no to more stuff. Like I am going down the road of burnout, but I don't want to let that person down, let let my friends down, and you're like in that jail. And almost what I would say is you kind of have to be a little bit of an asshole with it,
Sure.
kind of.
Sure.
And I think with just saying no, but I think it's also explaining to the people that you really care about, hey, I love you, but right now, this thing, I have to figure this thing out for myself. I have to prioritize this right now. And, yeah, I still want to hang out maybe, but I can't maybe do it as much now. Is it some of that?
I think a lot of it is how you say things. And again, I think about such profound life lessons I learned from people way smarter than me that came before me and wanted to share wisdom. And again, I was blessed with so many amazing mentors, but one of the big ones is yes, it matters what you're saying, but it matters way more how you say it. And if I just say, well, no, I don't have time for that. Thanks, Brian. Well, okay, now I am that asshole, right? But if I say, hey, Brian, listen, man, I understand, what you're asking me to do. I got to tell you, I just can't add something else on my plate right now. Can we revisit it later? I don't want to let you down, but I'm at that point where I'm almost burnt out. And if you really are my friend, and if you really are an empathetic human, you're going to sit there and go, John, that's fair. I got you, man. No worries. If you're going to hold it against me, then maybe we shouldn't be friends in the first place, right? But I think having those open conversations where we can be vulnerable, but framing it in a way of, and I use this a lot in business. I obviously use it a ton with my family, and I use it with my friends as well. But just know that my intentions are, I'm always leading with love, right? I'm always coming with a good intention of, I care about you. Can we have a difficult conversation?
Yeah.
And as long as you know my intention, I think it's okay to have that conversation with some of these defense walls down. I think the hard part is sometimes life is so hectic and busy that it's easier for me to just shoot you a text and be like, sorry, can't make it. Well, now there's no context. Now you don't know my intention. You don't hear my tonality. So, there is something to be said of learning how to communicate human to human. There's a big disconnect of that lately because it's so easy to do things through text and email and, social DMs and all that stuff where it takes away tonality. It takes away body language. It takes away, and I love that we're doing this face to face right now and we're not doing it in a Zoom or whatever, because there is that human connection that is so lacking. You think about where I work with a remote team. My team's all over the country. When we get together once a month, it's the best. You can feel it's an energy shift, right? This is how humans are meant to interact. We're tribal people. We're not meant to be at a desk staring at a screen all day, but that's how we spend our time. So we need to have those in-person connections. But I think part of that bleeds into delivering tough messages where you need to now create barriers for yourself. You need to be able to say no to folks. You need to be able to realize that sacred time doing nothing is that reset. Otherwise, you will get burnt out and you will not be the best version of yourself.
Yeah. And I think just to go back to saying no, I think it's like, how do we figure out what to say no to? Because that's a hard thing. And I do think it ties into just what's important to you. But something that a self-check you can do outside of that, what's important, is how do you feel after you do something? After I do something, am I drained? Do I feel like shit? Am I more energized? Do I feel great? Am I happier? Like, I think the energy piece to it is, it's hard to like quantify, but you just know. I think when you leave an event, you leave hanging out with certain people, you leave the gym, whatever it is, good or bad, having that check-in with yourself of, do I feel better or do I feel worse? Or maybe do I feel the same? Because that's an option too. And I think I've noticed that in my own life, and I think that's kind of step one. And not while you're doing the thing. After is very important. It's like waking up the next day with that hangover. It's like that kind of after. You know what I mean? Because in the moment, it might be great. And there's a time and place for that too. I'm not saying don't do that. But
Sure.
I think just generally speaking, how you feel after doing something will tell you a lot. And then again, that's step one. Then step two is, all right, well, next time, like, I got to maybe say no to that, and having an honest conversation. I think also we need to normalize, hey, I don't want to.
Oh,
That's a tough
man.
one. But again, it's that honest conversation of, hey, like I just don't want to. And I think it's just being honest with people. I think if everyone just checked down to honesty, we would get it, especially like the quarter lifer to quarter lifer. It's like, look, man, we're dealing with a lot. We're all freaking busy. I get it. It's okay to like take time with yourself. But again, that context and that tone, I think, is very important.
You hit the nail on the head on a few things. It's funny when you think about the word no. In almost every language, I don't want to say every language because I don't know, but I'm guessing it's not true. But in almost every language, it's the only universal word. No is translated to no in so many languages, and it's, you go anywhere in the world and you say no, people understand what you're saying. Yet we have such a hard time saying it, right? It's kind of a paradox. But to your point, I love the idea of how do you feel after? Did it fill up your cup? Did it drain your battery? Right? Do you regret doing it? Was it time worth spending? I go back to service. I can guarantee that donating your time, volunteering for things, always feels that. Like, very rarely does someone walk away and go, I really feel bad about, helping to clean up that, all the trash on the ocean, right? Like, yeah. It's going to fill your cup up, right? But then that honesty piece, that is so hard, right? I don't want to. You jogged a memory. I haven't thought about this in years. And I was probably around 30-ish. And me and my brother and my father, we grew up huge Patriots fans, season ticket holders, grew up right outside of Boston, right? So we would go to all the games all the time. So me and my brother ended up with a couple extra tickets, and I asked one of my really good friends, I'm like, hey, I got an extra ticket. You want to go to the game? Like, don't even worry about the ticket. I got you. You know what he said to me? He goes, well, it's a January game. I'd rather be warm in my own living room. Like, I don't want to go and spend 8 hours in the cold. And I'm like, you serious?
Yeah.
Like, I took it personal. But for me, that was a pivotal moment, and here I am remembering it. That was 15 years ago. Yeah. He was so honest to me. He's like, I just don't want to go. I'm not going to have that much of I'll have fun being with you, but like, that's not his thing. Like, for us, it was our thing. We were used to going to the cold games and braving it and doing it. And of course, we'd be freezing our butts off, but we had fun. That wasn't his thing. Am I still friends with him today? Yeah, he's one of my closest friends. Do I bust his balls all the time about that one time he rejected my free Patriots ticket? Yeah. But that is exactly what you're talking about, is just having the bravery. And again, saying it in a respectful way. The tonality is huge, but let's just be honest with each other. If it's something I just am not up for, okay. And you know what? On the other end, if I'm receiving that, I have to respect that. And I think that's part of it. It's a maturity thing, right? As you get into that phase of life where you're finding out who you are, what you like, what you don't like, you also are going to have to come to grips with, you've got to respect people who are living their own lives. And it's no longer, I can't take it personal. That was his choice not to go. He didn't want to go. I'm not going to force him. I don't want him sitting next to me being miserable the whole time just to please me. Right. So that tiny little insignificant event in my life proved to be an amazing life lesson, because he was quite honestly the first person that ever said no to me for something social. And I was like, wow, that's messed up. Now I look back at it and I go, that kid was way ahead of his time. He was onto something. And
it makes you like you did. It makes you look at yourself of like, am I doing something wrong? Should I not be going to this game? Right? Yeah. I've thought about that too. And I do, it does tie into everything we're talking about of knowing who you are, knowing what's most important to you, And also I think knowing why you would say yes or why you would say no, whatever your answer is, it's knowing why.
Yeah.
And having the security in yourself and in the relationship with that person to just be straight up and honest. And I think on the flip side, right, as the receiver of that no, I think we do kind of weirdly respect it in a way. There's a weird respect that happens when you see someone having boundaries.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing I kind of want to hit on, just to go back to the relationship piece, maybe we can kind of close here. The first time I met you, we grabbed coffee. We had a couple phone call conversations. Then we grabbed coffee once I moved in the area. And it was great. We probably sat down for like an hour and a half. Great mentor to me. Great conversation. But when I was in there with you, you probably stopped and said hi to 6, 7 people. I was like, who is this guy? How does he know all of these people and have these connections and these relationships? And I the question in there is, how do you, right? You talked about acquaintances, friends, maybe like the inner circle. There's like
Sure.
sections of it all, but what's helped you be able to do that? Like have those relationships that are yeah, like I just see you around and we can have a genuine conversation and be cordial, but we're probably not hanging out on a Friday night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's funny. I now remember that original coffee date, and yeah, it was a busy day. A lot of traffic coming in and out, and I think that the first part of it is taking a genuine interest in people, right? And not just like a casual hi, but like truly, like how you doing, and being available. For sure. Like if any of those people that I couldn't tell you who the 6 people I said hi to that day, but if any of them called me right now and said, John, I really need your help, I'd be like, okay, I'm dropping everything and I'll be there. But if they randomly were like, hey, let's hang out this Friday night, I'd be like, well, why?
Yeah,
right? Why? And now it's nothing personal. Doesn't mean I don't love you. But we're not going to continue this, more than likely. Right? So, but I am genuinely interested in people, and most days I do wake up pretty optimistic, right? My default is joy. I'm sure you've met people whose default is misery. My default is joy. Like even in the worst of things, I wake up and I go, today's going to be okay. It's going to be a good day. And I think that certainly has an attractive quality. You've met a positive person before, and you say something like, wow, their energy is great. And that's a real thing. Can't see it, can't measure it, but it's real. So I think taking that genuine interest helps a lot. But then also setting that healthy boundary. Like I guarantee that day when I said hi to those people, it wasn't like, hey, we should grab people say this all the time.
Yeah.
We should grab drinks. We should get together. We should grab coffee. It's been so long. That's an empty thing to say. You're not going to do it. Right. People don't do it. And I will say again, just having shrunken that inner circle of folks where they are the most important to me. They are the closest to me. They're the ones that I want to invest my time in. And I can proudly now say I am the average of the sum of the 5 people I spend most time with. And those 5 people are, pardon my French, fucking awesome people. Yeah. This is not a family friend. Yeah, okay. They are like, I have curated this incredible group of people that I spend time with, and I have shed the people that level me down. And then you've got that next outer ring, which again, I would call the acquaintances. I still take a genuine interest, but I also continue to set that boundary. And they do too. And sometimes people say, oh, we should grab drinks. And I'm like, yeah. And in my head, I'm thinking, I know it's not going to happen.
Right.
And that's okay. I think the other part of it too, as you get into your 30s and now you're balancing career, and by the way, career energy and bandwidth and all that just intensifies. 30s are hectic because now you're in way more prestigious roles that take way more time and way more effort, and it's hard. But the good news is everyone else that's around you is in the same boat. And generally they're trying to figure out a way to also have some of these boundaries, and they see you coming and they go, oh, I hope Brian doesn't ask me out for beers on Friday because I really just want to say no. So then it almost becomes this unspoken thing of like, I love you. I got nothing but love for you. I see you from a distance. If I happen to walk into a bar and you're there, I will buy you a beer, but we're probably not going to do this phony little thing where we pretend to be besties because I don't have the time, and I know you don't either. And that's okay.
And I 100% agree. And I like that too, because I think it is being genuine, being real and honest with each other. And I think too, I like to say that we are all the same in a lot of ways. We're all different, but we're all the same. I probably said that on a lot of these episodes so far. But I think we need to also normalize, right, the fact that we know everyone's busy. We know everyone's got their toe dipped in a lot of different places. And yeah, sometimes we just don't have the time to hang out like we used to. We're on different paths. We're doing different stuff. But at the end of the day, most of those friends that you've maybe lost touch with over the years, right? If you call them up right now, you guys would both still have that love for each other. It's just
Sure.
We don't have the time anymore.
That's it.
Right? And I think we need to normalize, we meaning like the quarter lifers that are kind of going through this shedding of friends type deal that's kind of naturally happening. Mm-hmm. I think we do need to normalize calling each other and it being okay if the other person doesn't answer, and leaving a voicemail. Like I leave voicemails for my friends now. It's like, dude, I know you're busy. I just had a minute. I was in the car. Just wanted to catch up for a few minutes, right? It's that, or sending something I've liked to do lately is sending voice messages.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
I want to hear your voice. Yeah.
Yeah. To make it more personal, and even at the bare minimum, just sending a text, sending an encouraging text on a random, almost like when you get it, it's like, why did I get this text? But when you think about it as like we're all the same, everyone wants that connection, that genuine, real relationship, because, right, what we're talking about, again, you do start to lose those. And then that friend that reaches out randomly on a Tuesday saying, hey, man, I know it's been a while, just thought of you, figured I'd just say hi. And that's all it has to be. We don't have to say, let's get together. It's just, hey, I'm still here.
Listen, we are tribal people, right? We are not meant to be. Some people are happier alone. That's okay. But in general, society, humans, we stick to people that we know, like, and trust, and we enjoy human interaction, right? Not 24/7, but one thing I've tried to be intentional with through the years, and it's almost become like a running joke, but I've got birthdays loaded up into my phone of just the most important people, right? The most important people. And I call them on their birthday and I sing to them. And it's wicked cheesy, right? And it's fine. It's corny as hell. And we laugh through the whole thing. But sadly, what I typically get most commonly as a response is, you're the only person that called me today. Mm-hmm. And it seems silly. I just turned 46 in March. I still do feel special on my birthday. When I wake up, I'm like, it's going to be a good day. Like, it's my birthday. My kids celebrate me. Like, get a bunch of texts, get a ton of stuff through, LinkedIn and, social media, whatever. But I think, to your point, just that little extra of, let me hear your voice. And it doesn't have to be, I'm not calling for a reason. I'm not calling with an agenda. I'm not calling to ask you to do something. I'm just saying, hey, I'm thinking of you. I love you. Calling on the birthday, always a fun thing. We have lost so much of that. And I think the quarter lifers, this is the first generation that so much of that is gone. They can decide to turn that tide again. they can decide to bring some. Everybody loves nostalgia, right? Everything's become nostalgic and vintage. Let's get back to some of those old connections of, again, pick up the phone, get together in person. But again, start to also normalize those boundaries and say, I need to keep my Friday night sacred because it's the one night I have nothing to do. And you know what? I'm going to do nothing. And sometimes that's just got to be good enough.
All right. So to close here, what would your message be to the quarter lifer, someone my age, that is trying to build a meaningful life? Because everyone's after that, I think. Yep. But while also juggling all this stuff, the career, the relationships, the physical health, everything that we've kind of talked about, what's your message to them?
Oh, man. I mean, I would have so many things to say, but if I could summarize it, I would first and foremost say slow down. Just slow down, right? Really seek those quiet moments. Seek the empty mind. It's okay to do nothing. Slow things down. It doesn't always have to be go, 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 because we control so much of that. A lot of it comes at us, but we're still in the driver's seat. And then I would say, secondly, is always have purpose. Think about what's most important for your life. What are you going to be most proud of when you look back? And again, to me, I think of it two ways. Number one, was I kind to other people and to myself? And did I give to those that are less fortunate than me? And if the answer to those two things is yes, then I'm good. But sometimes you have to slow down in order to do those things, right? So that's my advice. If I could tell my previous self, right? Just not everything is urgent, right? Things are important, but not everything is urgent.
And cut. Thank you again for being here, for listening to the entire episode. If you're still here, again, I want to invite you to join the Quarter Life Clarity community. It's free. It's anonymous. It's a place that we can take these topics from podcasts and have more of a conversation about them together. So again, would love to have you there. There's a link in the description of this episode and every episode that you can easily join it. Also, as I end every episode, I want to say don't try to remember it all. If you try to remember it all, you're going to remember none of it. So pick like the 1 to 2 things that really jumped out to you and try to act on them as best you can. I think if we don't turn those things into actions, then we just entertained ourselves for an hour, which is fine. But if we're going for change, I think we got to turn this stuff into real actions. So just my 2 cents on that. Lastly, if you're here till the very, very end, appreciate it. And if you could subscribe, give me a 5-star rating, follow Quarter Life Clarity on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, that would seriously be awesome and help a lot. But really how I want this to grow is by you sending it to a friend, you sending it to someone who you think would get value out of the conversation that we just had. If you didn't enjoy it, if you don't think anyone else would get value from it, don't send it to a friend. But if you got value from it, I would love if you would share it with someone else. That's truly how I want this thing to grow. And so again, thank you for being here, for caring about Quarter Life Clarity. Till next time.